Now let me show you how to set up the pot of gold candy dome in your Silhouette machine. So what I usually do is I open a new page and I set it to media type letter. We're going to use all letter size cardstock. It's the most efficient use of paper with this design. And then I just drag the SVG right from my computer onto my screen instead of importing. Works great. Then I'm going to leave it as one layer for right now, and I'm going to open the transform and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Then I'm going to hold down on the option key on I use a Mac, so however you do that on a PC. And then I'm going to do it 180 degrees. So we have two of these, and there is white on the outside, so just remember we're going to change that in a minute so it'll cut better. But just don't put it too close together and remember that that white section is there. So you'll see that we're going to be able to get this, two of these out of each 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So now I'm just going to align them horizontally. So they're right in the center. So now that I have them set up, I'm going to ungroup. So I have lots of different layers. And now we're going to organize these layers over in the layers panel. So everything right now is under one main layer. There's like two layer ones, but they're all under this one. So I'm going to click the plus button and I'm going to start another layer. And I'm going to double click on that and I'm going to call it gold. You want to name your layers so that when you go to cut, you know what layer you're working with. So now I'm just going to select all of the gold layers. And as I select them, they get highlighted over here. And I'm going to just drag them up in there. And I'm going to select them down here and do the same thing. Okay, so that is all the golds. And I'm just going to hide that. Okay, now I'm going to click plus. I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to call this black, which is going to be this layer for the pot. So it's just going to have two things in it. We're going to hide it. I just hide the layers as I put them into their own layer over here. And now we have two more layers. So we have these two white layers. I'm going to select those and I'm going to go up here to color and I'm going to make them black just so that we can see them. And so when we go to cut this on our silhouette, the silhouette can see them as well. So now we're going to go back to layers. I'm going to make another upper layer. And I'm going to call this base because this is the base that we're going to build the design when we're putting this all together. And then this shape is the same exact outline as the base, you'll see. But instead of having this big circle cut out, which goes over top of the candy dome, it has this dashed line with a little tab. So this is the very back of your candy dome where people are going to pull that and rip to access the candy. So I'm just going to drag this up into the top layer of the original layer one, and I'm going to call it back. Then these two are empty, so I'm going to delete them. So now we have everything really organized. So you'll notice on an 8.5 by 11, you can cut two backs, two bases, and two of these. I don't think, one thing I like about Silhouette is you can always cut a little bit more than you can on a Cricut. So I think we are going to be able to cut four of these. So this is great, like if you're making it for a class or making it for a few people. Maybe there's a leprechaun in your house and he's going to leave pots of gold for a few people. So you can cut four, or if you only need two, maybe just delete those two and you'll only use a half sheet of paper. These do not need to be so far apart. So we can put them up here. If you're only going to be making two, you'll just use a little bit of green paper, or you can just copy and paste and see how many you can fit onto an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So at least 6. If you reorganize, you might be able to get 7 or 8 on there. But we'll just do 2 at a time and say we're going to make 2 pots of gold base. Oh yes, and then the gold. Okay, so this has a lot of different layers. So these two are for above the pot. All of these circles that are a little bit darker, that was just so you could see them on the design. These are kind of extras, which I'm going to use like foam adhesive dots to make them bigger. So you can either cut them out with your machine, or if you just have a hole punch and would prefer to do that, you can do that as well. And it can be any size. These are just coins that are going to give a little bit of dimension to your design. You can use them, you can skip them, you can hole punch them, you can make them out of glitter, so many things you can do. So if you are doing multiple pots of gold, you can get a ton of gold out of any piece of yellow paper. So now you're just going to show whichever layer you're working on first. You're going to send it to your machine and you're going to cut each of them. So you're going to cut this one, come back, make the gold show. If you like to put more than one thing on your mat and you're using smaller pieces of paper, you could do like a 3.5 by 5.5 piece of yellow, put it in the top of the mat. This is a great way to use scraps. You could put this down here and even your black, if you had like a skinny strip of black. If you're going to do multiple colors on your cutting mat and cut them all at once, you do want to make sure that you go back here and you choose media size auto, and then you're paying attention to exactly what size paper you need and where it needs to be based on where you have this on your layout. All right, so you're just going to cut that and then you're going to put it together. So let's take a look at that.
Now I'm going to show you how to assemble this pot of gold for St. Patrick's Day. This one I did just with regular cardstock. One of the most important things I think is to find gold candy. This one has Hershey Kisses with almonds that come in a gold foil. But for this project, we're going to use Rolos, also gold, really look like coins to me. And I'm going to be using glitter for the gold for the paper. So here's all our supplies, the papers that we cut out. You can use glue, you can use tape runner, any kind of adhesive that you want. I'm going to use some foam dots to add a little bit of dimension and a glue stick. So let's get started. These are the two base layers. This is the back. They're going to grab that to open it. That's how that looks on the back. So we're going to put that aside and we're going to build our pot of gold on the base first. This is the circle that will go around the candy dome. So what I'm going to do is you're going to line up this center circle, and the base is designed to have a little bit of white going all the way around the design so that you know how to lay it out. And I like to use tacky glue. And you want to use it really sparingly, but I feel like it just sticks a little bit better than my dot adhesive, but I do use both. Now, you don't want to put it across the very top because we're going to tuck a couple things in there. So I'm going to put that down, making sure I line up the center. And just press that down. And I just have it on this heating pressing mat so that you can see the white, because you can't see it on my table. Then the next thing, and I'm going to put this here just for reference. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this little bit of gold, tuck it under there. I'm going to try the adhesive dot runner. It's definitely fast. And we're just going to squeeze it a teeny bit under the lip of the pot. Next comes the shamrock, which you're going to line up like that, and it's going to overlap that little bit of gold. It's those little things that gives these projects a little bit more dimension and interest. Put that down. Now this bunch of cash is going to go over top of the shamrock and the other. And we're going to tuck it under the pot a teeny bit. Oh my gosh, look how cute. I love the glitter. I would have done a glitter shamrock too, but I didn't have any. I didn't have any green glitter. So I'm going to get this. You're only going to do the flat part, and now we're going to put the candy dome. If you wanted to put a message or anything, you could write it on there now before you get it all together. It's a lot harder to write on this once it's wobbly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 3.15 inch / 80 millimeter fillable ornament, and you just need a half for each one of these. We're going to put the candy in it, then put the paper on top, and then flip it. That is much easier than trying to flip it with the candy and not have the candy fall out. Put that down, but before, and we're going to turn on the hot glue gun. Now, before you glue this down, we need to make sure it's in the perfect spot. So where I have it, you'll see it's not in the perfect spot because these papers are not lining up. These are the exact same size. So you're going to line up the outer edges of this top that we just put together with the bottom. Then you're going to put your finger on the dome, lift that off, don't move the dome, and then you're just going to run a bead of hot glue all the way around the edge. You're going to make sure that the glue is going on the paper and touching the plastic. It's kind of like caulking in the bathroom. That's going to seal this and it's going to hold it together nicely. All right, now we're just going to glue that on top. And I am going to use glue for this one. But again, you don't want to make it too thick or it's going to make the paper a little bit wet and warp. So you just kind of do it really thin, smear it all over. And you're going to place that down, lining up the outer edges. And then I always start pressing down farthest away from this candy dome because there is a little bit of, there's going to be a little bit of bubble in this paper because it's going over top of the glue and the edge of the candy dome. So it doesn't lay perfectly flat once you have that candy in there. And then I usually just work my fingers around the outside to make sure that gets nice and sealed. And then these are optional. It looks super cute like this, but I think this just adds a little bit to it. And you could even do more, like if you had little different size circle punches, you could do different sizes. You could create different size circles to cut with your cutting machine. But I just cut a bunch of these. There's 3 in the design, but you can obviously just copy and make extras, which I did because I have 6. It's basically what I could fit on the little piece of glitter paper that I had so that I wouldn't waste it. And now I'm just going to put these around to make it look like there's even more gold. Could even put some on the bottom. There's no reason it can't go off the edge a little bit. And there we go. Another pot of gold, this one with Rolos and glitter, which gives a little bit of a different look, but both very fun and both made with the same exact design.